Our initial contention to the light roof brief was that any design solution would be spurious unless demonstrated in a real-world setting. So we narrowed our search by way of addressing an existing topology and presented a scenario personal to us. Where should a young professional buy in central London? Whilst the terrace house is commonplace, its topology is far too aspirational for first-time buyers, as they are intended for families and often have reasonably sized rear gardens separated by alleys. So our first idea, can you build in that alleyway and take a bit of that luxurious garden space away?
Our answer? Not really, but some brief research did reveal that a similar idea had been explored in the form of a back-to-back terrace, but unfortunately this was executed awfully. These houses were cheap, poorly ventilated, insufficiently lit, and had bad sanitation. Nevertheless, despite the shortcomings, the back-to-back did seem to address the brief. So our new question, would it be possible to revise the typology to achieve modern living standards? To achieve this, the site selection would be critical.
For the site we found an urban void defined by high-rise terraces and commercial properties near Finchley Road in central London, and an occupied section of land heavily surrounded, overlooked and with limited access to elevational light, which for traditional topologies would be unusable, but for us it represented an opportunity to test our ideas.
As we intended to further densify the city, it would be incongruous to propose a single-storey dwelling, despite this being the simplest option to light only from above. Consequently, we proposed a two-storey inverted house and took a lead from Luce in trying to subvert the floor plate to introduce light to the lower level. Rather than physically changing levels, however, we suggested that light undermine the uniformity and solidity by way of identifying areas on the first floor plan that might become void or be suitable for a roof light.
The primary directive was to light a building only from above. The space in the plan identified to achieve this were over vertical circulation, an external space, and an internal light well. The simplest area to identify was the stair void, a ready-made opening to puncture the monolithic floor. Initially, we proposed a light over the length of the stairs that would confront an occupant as soon as they entered the dwelling. This developed into a series of promenades of natural light, which manifested as two elongated roof lanterns stretching from front to back through key spaces.
The location of the external space was driven by the resolution of the plan and the promenades through the dwelling, our belief being that it should be at the conclusion of the journey given the hierarchy of the spaces that precede it. Its position informed the use of the areas beneath it at ground floor level. For example, they would be ill-suited to bedrooms with a roof light above. The inclusion of an external light well also permits some vertical openings and outdoor space which aim to address the potential subterranean feeling that lighting exclusively from above might engender. The internal light well is the heart of the proposal and is intended to work at both levels. At first floor, the cube defines the habitable areas and facilitates movement throughout the spaces. The glazing that defines it changes how those spaces are inhabited, and in turn the cube might become occupied depending on whether the glazing is open or closed. By doing so, it is intended to blur the line between interior and exterior space. A void is sunken into the floor plate to provide additional natural light to the ground floor. A cuboidal form at this level would inhibit the privacy of the bedrooms, so the form is transformed into a triangle-based extrusion to set internal views askance while still permitting natural light and ventilation.